What if the WWE's version of the nWo actually delivered as intended, with Shawn Michaels leading a highly poisonous faction? And what if that rise sparked a response from a reformed, re-energized Wolfpac, two legendary factions on a collision course? That's the story we're diving into today, using WWE 2K25 Universe mode. The night after Vengeance, the WWE landscape felt different, and it didn't take long to see why. Raw opened with the newly restructured New World Order. In the ring, Michaels cut deep, thanking God that Kevin Nash had finally seen the light. HBK condemned Hall, calling him a weight Nash had carried for far too long. The crowd booed, but Michaels grinned. It wasn't just about Hall. This was about history. Diesel and the Heartbreak Kid, now reunited with a different kind of bond. Michaels gave Nash a nod mid-promo, almost ceremonially telling Nash to do as he's told. This wasn't just a new chapter for the nWo, it was a power shift. Michaels had taken the reins, and with Nash backing his play, the WWE version of the group had never looked more dangerous. Hall was out. Booker T had already been exiled weeks earlier. As the nWo stood tall, soaking in their dominance, the camera cut backstage to a cold, disgusted Booker T, watching from a monitor. The fire in his eyes said everything. He hadn't forgotten, and he hadn't forgiven. Later that night, Booker stepped back into the ring, facing off against X-Pac in what should have been a chance at redemption. But with the nWo, nothing is ever that simple. Just as Booker began to beat the snot out of Pac, Michaels struck, appearing ringside and dropping him with a nasty sweet chin music. The assault escalated instantly, turning into an ambush. Nash, Big Show, and X-Pac closed in, pummeling Booker in a 4-on-1 stomping. The message was clear: stay down, stay gone. But then, the crowd went nuts as someone leapt the barricade. No music, no warning, just the crack of a baseball bat against the steel steps. Scott Hall was back. With fire in his eyes and a foreign object in hand, Hall slid into the ring. The nWo scrambled. The unity they flaunted earlier, gone. Hall stood tall as Michaels and company retreated up the ramp. The exiled had returned, and he wasn't playing games. He didn't need to speak. His presence said it all. This war was just getting started. The next week, backstage, Scott Hall found Booker T. No bravado, no threats, just a conversation between two men with a common enemy. Hall made it clear Booker didn't owe him anything. But then he said something that hit harder than any punch. There's strength in numbers. Hall looked him in the eye and warned that now that Shawn Michaels was back in WWE and calling the shots, opportunities for everyone else would start to disappear fast, unless they pushed back, unless they fought while they still had the chance. Booker didn't respond, not with words, but the look he gave Hall, that fire was back. The wheels were turning. In the main event, the tone shifted. On one side, pure brute force, Nash and Big Show, two giants representing the nWo's massive power. On the other, speed, risk-taking and unpredictability, courtesy of Jeff Hardy and Rob Van Dam. It was a clash of styles, of philosophies, of eras. The big men used their size to dominate early, slowing the match to their pace, grounding the high flyers. But Jeff and RVD brought the fight, using every inch of the ring to keep the giants off balance. As the action unfolded in the ring, the camera cut to the nWo watching closely from backstage. Arms folded, eyes sharp, their expressions said it all. This was about asserting dominance and about retaining territory. Midway through the match, disaster struck for the nWo. Big Show took a nasty spill to the outside, landing awkwardly and twisting his knee. Medical staff rushed to ringside as Show clutched his leg, effectively taking him out of the match. And just when things couldn't get more chaotic, Scott Hall made his presence felt once again. This time, in a bizarre move that left everyone scratching their heads, Hall emerged wearing Diesel-style gear, a clear jab at Nash's past. The mind games were real, and they worked. With Nash now struggling to hold it together while looking at his old friend wearing his classic WWF attire, Jeff Hardy and RVD capitalized. A combo of high-impact offense and a perfectly timed 5-star frog splash sealed it. Hardy and RVD picked up the win, leaving Nash angry in the ring while Hall smirked from the stage. But Hall wasn't done. He made his way to the ring, locking eyes with RVD. With the crowd buzzing, Hall raised his hand and offered the too sweet. RVD paused, glancing at the crowd, and then simply grinned. Instead of accepting, he hit his signature RVD pose and rolled out of the ring to celebrate with Hardy. Hall chuckled, watching them go. The war was far from over, but lines were starting to be drawn. The following week, the arena erupted as Scott Hall made his entrance on Raw. No smoke and mirrors or comical attires, just a man walking tall, with the crowd now firmly in his corner. The ovation was deafening. Hall wasn't just back, He was beginning to become one of the top guys, something that was boiling HBK's blood. Hall grabbed a mic and dropped his bravado for a moment of pure honesty. He spoke from the heart, about the journey, the loyalty, and the betrayal, about WCW, the guaranteed contracts, the outsiders, and the clique, about Kevin Nash. "You were my brother," Hall said. "We changed the game together, and now you're running with someone who only looks out for himself." Hall didn't want to wait until SummerSlam. He called Nash out right then and there, demanding to settle it face to face, man to man. But it wasn't Nash who came out first. It was the nWo. Shawn Michaels, X-Pac, and a limping Big Show hit the ramp, surrounding the ring. Hall was outnumbered, and he knew it. Still, he stood his ground. But just when it looked like history would repeat itself, Booker T emerged from the crowd, sliding into the ring beside Hall. The two stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to fight. And suddenly, the odds didn't look so uneven. The nWo paused, recalculated, and then retreated. Maybe, just maybe, Hall wasn't alone after all. Later that night in Raw's main event, the pieces began to fall into place. Big Show and X-Pac stood in the ring, ready for battle, but what they saw next left them stunned. The lights dimmed, a familiar beat hit, and out came Scott Hall and Booker T, side by side, wearing the iconic red and black. The crowd erupted as "Don't Turn Your Back on the Wolfpac" blasted through the arena. During the match, tensions escalated even further. As Hall and Booker began to dominate, Shawn Michaels attempted a run-in, but before he could even reach the ring, Rob Van Dam appeared out of nowhere and cut him off. With the crowd roaring, RVD dropped Michaels with a thunderous super kick on the ramp. Back in the ring, the action reached its climax. Hall hit the razor's edge and secured the 3 count, sealing a major victory for the newly reformed Wolfpac. As the dust settled, Hall and Booker stood tall, soaking in the reaction from the crowd. As the crowd roared in celebration of Hall and Booker's big win, RVD slid back into the ring, still riding the momentum from his earlier run-in. Hall turned to him, hand raised, offering the too sweet once again. This time RVD took it more seriously. With a nod and a smirk, he tapped knuckles with Hall. The arena erupted. Just like that, Van Dam was in. The Wolfpac had gained a new ally, and the resistance against HBK's backstage politics just got a serious boost. Meanwhile, backstage, a camera caught Kevin Nash watching the moment unfold on a monitor. Arms crossed, jaw clenched, Nash looked furious. The sight of Hall, Booker, and now RVD standing united was more than just a loss. The following week, it was Shawn Michaels who made his voice heard. With Kevin Nash by his side, HBK stepped into the ring and grabbed the mic, his expression cold and calculated. "I'm not surprised," he said flatly, "that RVD has aligned himself with Scott Hall. Rob Van Dam is just as much of a failure as Scott Hall ever was," Michaels continued, drawing heavy boos from the crowd. "He's all flash, no substance, overrated, overhyped, and overbooked. And mark my words, SummerSlam will be RVD's final main event. Period." The gauntlet had been thrown. Michaels didn't just want to beat RVD, he wanted to end his rise, bury the resistance, and cement the nWo's dominance one last time. Later that night, the challenge became reality. In the main event of Raw, Shawn Michaels went one-on-one with Rob Van Dam. This was more than a match. It was a grudge that had been simmering for weeks. From the opening bell, it was explosive. HBK tried to ground the high-flying RVD, but Van Dam's unorthodox offense kept Michaels reeling. The crowd was on fire, sensing they were witnessing something special. The frustration was written all over Michaels' face. And then, in a moment of desperation, HBK grabbed a steel chair and, right in front of the referee, smashed it across RVD's back. The bell rang. Disqualification. The match was over. Michaels walked away smirking. Just when fans thought the night was over, chaos erupted backstage. Cameras cut to a wild brawl breaking out between members of the nWo and the Wolfpac. Chairs flew, fists connected, total mayhem as security tried desperately to restore order. Meanwhile, in the ring, RVD was still recovering when an ominous figure stepped through the ropes. The crowd murmured, unsure. Michaels turned and froze. The camera zoomed in. No way. Lex Luger, dressed in red and black. The crowd exploded as the total package made his stunning return to WWE television, siding unmistakably with the Wolfpac. He hoisted Michaels into the air and locked in the torture rack. HBK flailed before finally collapsing to the mat. The message was clear. Luger was back, and he was Wolfpac. And at SummerSlam, it's officially 4-on-4. The stage was set, the atmosphere was electric. SummerSlam had arrived, and with it, what many were calling the final chapter in the saga of the New World Order, nWo versus Wolfpac, 4-on-4. A battle not just of factions, but of legacies. The dirt sheets had been swirling for weeks, whispers that WWE was ready to pull the plug on the nWo once and for all. That tonight, in this match, the fate of the black and white brand would be sealed. If that was true, then this wasn't just a match. It was a funeral of an iconic wrestling brand. On one side, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, X-Pac, and Big Show, the latest incarnation of the nWo. ruthless, cold, and calculated. On the other, Scott Hall, Booker T, Rob Van Dam, and the wild card, the returning Lex Luger. The Wolfpac reborn in spirit, energy, and rebellion. The match? Beautiful. Finishers flying. Tag-ins barely mattering. It wasn't about rules. It was about pride. Michaels and RVD revisiting their bitter rivalry. Nash and Hall throwing shots like it was '96. And Luger? Luger was the surprise MVP, tossing bodies like a man a decade younger. The turning point came when Kevin Nash was shockingly eliminated via roll-up. Ironically, Michaels was the last man standing for the nWo, and he wasn't handling it well. He went crazy at Nash at ringside, screaming at his partner, blaming him for everything. But the verbal assault backfired. Something changed in Nash's eyes. Maybe it was regret, maybe it was clarity. Either way, he'd had enough. Nash dropped Michaels with a thunderous jackknife powerbomb to a deafening roar from the crowd. He then rolled Michaels' lifeless vessel back into the ring. Scott Hall stood ready. His eyes met Nash's. A subtle nod, a moment of unity. Hall hoisted Michaels up. Razor's edge. 1, 2, 3. If this truly was the end of the nWo saga, it ended the only way it ever could, with brotherhood reclaimed and legacy restored.